One man who's suffered more than most is Arran Coghlan.
If I was watching a programme called Faces or reading a book called Faces, the first thing that springs to my mind is why is this person being involved if he's not a criminal or in some way involved with criminality? However, to me, a face is someone who's become notorious by hook or crook, you know, be it his own fault or not his own fault. You know, some people are born notorious, some people achieve notoriety, others have it thrust upon them. I've had it put on me from a young age by the police because maybe they viewed me as an easy target. But what forum do I have to set the record straight? You know, apart from a programme like this, which is, you know, you've taken an interest because of the notoriety that I've mentioned. It's by virtue of that I've got the platform, if you like, in order to try and counter it.
In 1994, Coghlan was arrested and charged with the murder of Chris Little, a notorious Stockport villain. Little had been shot in the head as he sat at traffic lights behind the wheel of his car. At the time of his arrest, Coghlan accepts that he had been involved in nothing more than relatively minor car crime.
There was an absolute evidential vacuum in the early stages of that investigation. Of course, the pressure's on them. So who do they go for? Somebody who sticks out like a sore thumb, somebody who maybe is an easy target because he's involved in some way in criminality, because that seems a common theme with how the police do things as well. So yeah, they wrote me in. The description of the people, I think one was a black guy, one was a 45-year-old guy, and there I was, skinny young man.
Coghlan eventually stood trial for the murder, but was acquitted.
Yeah, the problem is, Bernie, after they've been exposed, what are they supposed to say? Are they supposed to say, yeah, we are corrupt police officers, yeah, we did concoct stories and concoct evidence to try and cover our own inadequacy? Is that what they're supposed to do? Or is it more likely of people of their calibre that they say, oh, he's slippery, he's too clever, he's this Teflon Don, what are we poor police officers supposed to do? It's all so difficult for us. Well, what you're supposed to do is be straight. And when you don't, you undermine everything. Therein lies the problem.
In 2002, the police arrested Coghlan and charged him with the murder of a drug dealer named David Barnshaw, who'd been kidnapped, forced to drink petrol and burnt alive.
A guy was kidnapped and taken away and he was killed. And that was a terrible thing. The original witnesses, and some of them independent, were giving all manner of descriptions and what happened and all the rest of it. And again, almost to ignore all that and just try and get me at all costs in some way involved. One minute they wanted me to actually be there and try and suggest that somebody heard one word uttered and that could have been my voice. Then when they realised that actually I was somewhere else, they tried to make out like I may have been orchestrating matters and all the rest of it. It was just really, really shocking. If you understood that case, or you read the ruling, there was all manner of evidence against other people. There was no evidence against us. There was DNA on other people, no DNA on us. It wasn't rocket science, any of it. But I think one of the clearest indications of their mindset, this get Coghlan at all costs mindset, was a document that I found from one of the senior investigators. And what had happened is one of the original witnesses had said they'd seen a guy in a baseball cap and he was either black or Asian. It was dark, they weren't sure. And they found a baseball cap at the scene. That baseball cap was found to have a black man's hair in it. And you know, a message must have come into the incident room from one of the officers saying, what do we do about this? Shall I send it off for DNA, for testing or whatever else? And the senior officer sent a memo back and it said, no need, all our suspects are white. Wow.
The case collapsed and yet again Coghlan walked free. Coghlan's problems with the police were far from over. One evening he was approached on the street by two undercover officers.
I was approached on a dark back street by two guys, one at least as big as me. I'm 6'4", he was at least as big as me, bit wider, dark clothing on, ridge inside his coat, never a good sign, and a black guy that I thought at the minute with him. They didn't identify themselves even when asked, and just the whole demeanour, you know, they looked aggressive, they looked like they were up for it, they approached me. Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind at that time that they had malicious intent towards me. So I defended myself. They both got hit. They both ended up on the floor. And only then did I realise, when they were crying down the radios, that they were police. Did I run off like anybody else would once that was realised? No. I stood on and I stayed there because I didn't do anything wrong. So when the other police came, it was me who actually shouted them down the road because they'd gone to the wrong place. Not that that's like the police. So I shouted them down the road, and they actually ran at the two police officers first because of the way they were dressed and the way they looked, thinking they were the culprits. They were right. They then pointed at me, and I was arrested and all the rest of it. So in anything that involves me, you can always rely on the police for one thing: they'll lie. It's just a standard. In this one, a great big whopper came forth, which was, in the long run, amusing. At the time, scary, again, to be in a situation where somebody's looking you right in the eye and lying directly to you. And I remember it, we're on the interview, and he said, these police officers were wearing overt body armour with police emblazoned across the front. I said, oh, emblazoned? You mean like Vegas? You mean I couldn't miss it? So just so I've got this right, what you're saying is, no matter what the verbals were, the visuals were such that I must have known they were police officers. Is that what you're saying? And he went, that is what I'm saying. I went, good, good. Because in a world of modern technology, where we like to make sure the police are safe, and all police stations are CCTV'd up for their safety at public expense, you won't mind, while I have a coffee with my lawyer, just nipping off. You can download it these days. No big long tapes. Download it, we'll wait here for you, and then we can clear all this mess up, can't we? Because they'll be coming out on CCTV, and they'll have these overt body armour on with police emblazoned. Oh, they won't, will they? Because they're lying, aren't they? I'll wait here for you, officer. And he starts all out, this is my interview, and all the rest of it. And at that point, and rightly so, he was dismissed. It also transpired in that case that the SIO, that's the senior investigating officer in the case, was the right-hand man of the guy who had tried to stitch me up in the previous case, who the judge had slaughtered, he'd had to retire, and all the rest of it. It turns out this was his right-hand man, and yet in interview, I was assured that they were aware of the problems I'd had before with Stockport Police, and that they were independent and seconded in from outside the area to, quote, preserve the integrity of this inquiry. Nice. So it then turns out that it was this guy's right-hand man who was the SIO in the case. So he must have told them to say that to me in an interview, mustn't he? Because that's what they do. They sit upstairs, they decide what they're going to say in an interview, and then they come down and they pitch it. So the actual formula of words that was used to me was given to the officer who pitched it by the SIO. That's just what I've come to expect. When it all eventually came out, obviously the camera evidence, this is the most simple lie, the whopper that I referred to earlier. When it all came out, they were on camera walking out with hoodies, dark clothing, and I think there was a film years ago, Crocodile Dundee, and there was a guy in it who walked and dropped one leg as he walked, Delroy Brown. That's what they look like. You couldn't have looked more like hoodie rats if you tried. Maybe that's the look they were going for. But it certainly wasn't police emblazoned across the front, was it?
In February 2010, Coghlan was once again arrested for murder after a well-known Manchester villain, Stephen Akinyemi, was found dead in Coghlan's bathroom.
There was a dispute between two people. That dispute was over a nickname. Made all the more ridiculous by the fact that there was no confusion. One was black and one was white. I wasn't confused. But they were both my friends. And whether they're confused or not, if I can assist a friend to try and resolve something, then I'm gonna. I'd arranged a meeting at my home. My missus and small child were there. The black party was there. The white party was due to come. The whole rhetoric of the fella who was there was such that that wasn't the day for the meeting. You know, that he was getting heated about it and all the rest of it. So I just thought, better we deal with this another day. So I said, leave it to me, I'll speak to him. We'll sort it out, be no problem. My missus left at that point with my daughter. I went to the gym, kid in the creche, all that. He seemed to change at that point. Asked to use the bathroom, went to the bathroom and then shouted me up. I thought he'd missed the fact that the light's on the outside of the bathroom. And that's why he was shouting, because he couldn't find the light or something. As I came level with the bathroom door, it seems he's prepared himself. He's got a gun out, a little James Bond-esque thing, little thing with a silencer on, and demanded that I get the other guy there. To add impetus to his request, he's then punched me in the face, thinking that maybe because he's got the gun, there won't be much of a response. And maybe if I thought about it, there wouldn't have been. However, immediate reaction was to hit him back. And a struggle ensued from there, whereby I ended up getting him around the head, pushing the gun away from myself. The gun's gone off in that initial melee. Luckily, that's it, the tiles are not me. Always a bonus. And whilst I've got him in that thing, he's trying to make sure the gun's not coming at me and trying to restrain his use of it. He's managed to pull a knife out, which showed forensically later that he got it out of his back pocket. And he's managed to stab me in the jaw, which has cut down into the neck, in the sternum, in the arm and in the hand. And during that, the gun's gone off a couple of times and he's fell away. I've not realised where he's been shot. It turns out he's caught him in the head. I rang the police. The police came and duly arrested me. Even though the man had a gun, a knife, a bulletproof vest, had left his car offside, his phone's offside so he wouldn't be cell-sided there. And from the way the police were after it and their actions after it, it seemed to me, even at the time, that they had knowledge of his intent and the way he was coming. Later, as the evidence unfolded, that came out to be true. They did know he was coming, sat across the road and watched the whole thing unfold. And when I survive, instead of giving me a medal maybe for not getting the other guy there at gunpoint, brass band, no. They arrested me and put me on that high-risk cat remand again. Nice. So if it had been anybody else in the country, they'd have been defending themselves. There are people that hear about every day in the papers, they're using their own weapons to defend themselves. Are they languishing on remand for, 5, nearly 6 months like I was? Getting charges like that laid at the door? No. So the way the police operate with me is different than the way they operate with other people.
Before the trial, forensic evidence came to light that proved his innocence.
There was the dead guy's DNA, non-blood, on the bullet cartridge, consistent with him having loaded it. Not disclosed to me for 5.5 months. The paint that was on the hole that he'd made in my shirt as he stabbed me in the chest, little fragments of paint. It turns out that paint matched the knife. The paint on the knife matched a room in his house. It's like CSI Miami, isn't it? And you think to yourself, well, they can't be really stitching you up then if all that evidence came out. Therein lies the problem. That evidence didn't come out. That evidence was suppressed for nearly 5 months. It's difficult, even with the bentest of police officers, to get every single person all in a big circle to lie for you. I mean, they do quite good at it. But they can't hold it down forever. Actually, if you push and you stand on, eventually you should get to the truth. So, when it all comes out in the wash, They knew that the gun was down to him. They could positively link him to the bullets and the gun. They could positively link him to the knife, and left me on remand for all that time. It then comes out that they knew there was a meeting. They knew that there was a dispute between those two people. They knew that I was mediating it. They're watching all parties because they want to see what's going to happen. There is an allegation made against him during a 2-week period prior to this incident of armed rape. Somebody reports him for armed rape in the lead up to that. So whilst he's on surveillance, whilst they're watching me, watching him, and watching the other party who was in dispute with him, he rapes a girl at knife point. The police admitted that they knew it was him, that the suspect was identified, and that there was sufficient evidence to charge him. They didn't arrest him, they didn't preserve the crime scene, they did nothing. And why? Because they wanted to leave an armed rapist at large with a gun and a knife, because they wanted to see what was going to happen to me. They sat across the road and watched him come into my home. And when I win, I then get arrested. Against that backdrop, I then get arrested. Really.
After Coghlan was cleared, the press began calling him the Teflon Don, a title he neither recognises nor wants. Despite not being convicted of any charge, he spent 5 years in prison on remand, awaiting the various trials that he's faced. So after all what's happened, Arran, you know, you must have a pretty dim view of the police.
Well, you know what it is? Any right-thinking person has got to accept that you need the police. They're important. Public safety, all that. They're obvious points, but they're real points. The problem is, you know, when a few of them start the behaviour that's been exhibited in my cases, and just a few more beginning to join in that kind of behaviour, and it's all going to go wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's important that they're brought to book, you know, legitimately brought to book, laid bare, so that the people who do the job properly, they'll look at that and it might encourage them to stay on the right course, might it?
So you're saying generally you haven't got a problem with the police?
No, absolutely not. Listen, you couldn't sit there and reasonably say all police are bent. They're not. There's plenty of them who do a great job, isn't there? It's obvious.